I'm using a tile cement product, so after spreading out our mortar on the foundation, we butter the back of the bricks to add a little more than we're going to need, and then remove the excess and then put it back in place, adding the golden path gravel.
This is the best part, is putting this top coat on. It'll start to look like a finished backyard.
Close the door and leave the light on. The morning light should be coming soon. Kick off your shoes and leave the winter and the pain it brings to you. Lay your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind.
I'm using a tile cement product instead of mortar to stick these bricks down. I find it more effective than using normal mortar. I've added some sandstone pigment to help it blend if you see it in between the bricks. The natural product is very white. I'm just transferring it from my mixing bucket into a smaller tub. Because we'll be working at ground level, it'll make it easier to access. I'm setting up some timbers to be able to put the bricks on to help keep everything clean. Then I give the whole area one last wash off. I don't want any sand or gravel debris on this foundation when we stick these pavers down. To help keep things manageable, I work in groups of 5 bricks at a time. After removing a group of bricks to create a gap, we give it a quick wash down and then set ourselves up to add our mortar. We want a nice bed of mortar to have full contact with the foundation and the bricks. So after spreading out our mortar on the foundation, we butter the back of the bricks so we have extra adhesion to the whole system. I then repeat the process with the following bricks. The idea is to get them roughly set, and then we can do slight adjustments later with our rubber hammer and our level. So we double check with our level to make sure everything's lining up, and then continue laying the other bricks. Once our batch of 5's all set in place, we use the rubber hammer and the level to make sure everything's lined up properly, and then check for spills and do a quick clean up with my sponge I have on hand, then move on to the next batch. We're working in a tight space here, so I reconfigure my setup for each batch of bricks to make sure everything's in a convenient place and we can avoid spills. After clearing our batch of bricks, washing down the area and sponging the excess water off, I set 10mm packers out, as this is how I'm going to get the pavers to match the drain height. This bottom area of the pathway is a little trickier than the rest because we have this drain we've got to match the height to. After being satisfied that the 10mm packer will get the brick to the right height, we spread out our tile adhesive on our foundation in the usual way, but take extra care to not push these packers out of alignment. We need to apply enough cement so it's sitting higher than the packers. This way we'll get good contact between the brick and the foundation. I then repeat the procedure we went through earlier of buttering the bricks to make sure they have a really good adhesion, laying them in place, checking their alignment, and in this case we have to do a little extra cleanup because of the thickness of the cement we've put under our bricks. I then set the last brick in this row to complete this section. I left this one till last as it joins onto the next row that runs across this pathway. Now that the most difficult part of this process is complete and our pavers are matching this drain perfectly, it's just a matter of continuing the same process over and over. I actually find a lot of enjoyment about doing repetitive process like this, especially when you've staged everything really well. I enjoy just getting into the flow of my job, sticking these bricks down as best I can, as this is one of the final steps in this entire project.
Lay your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind. I offer peace and understanding for the things that you seek to find. Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow. Nobody feels the pain. Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow. Are you strong enough to break these chains? Are you strong enough to break these chains? Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow. Nobody feels the pain. Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow. Are you strong enough to break these chains? Are you strong enough to break these chains? Close the door and leave the light off.
As I move up the pathway, I constantly restage for each row of bricks I want to glue down. There's not a lot of room to work in, and I want to be really careful not to bump the bricks I've already glued down. I chose the product Ceramicrete for sticking our pavers down because it has a lot of good properties that are going to be really effective for what we're trying to achieve here. It's purpose designed for sticking tiles down and has a really sticky quality, as you can see as I try and get it off my trowel onto our concrete foundation. This version of the product came in white, so I've added a sandstone pigment to try and bring it up to the colour that matches the bricks a little more. This way, if we have a little bit stuck between two bricks, it'll blend into the background and not stand out. It's designed to create a thin, tight bond between our concrete and tile or pavers. So the system I use is to always add a little more than we're going to need. Spread it all out, get a really good contact with the surface, and then remove the excess, and then we move on to sticking our pavers down. I have 3 tools I'm using for this process: a cement trowel, a paint scraper, and a tile trowel. I use my cement trowel and paint scraper to get the general volume of the product onto our foundation. I take my time with this process because I'm trying to get complete coverage over all the concrete foundation. When I'm satisfied with how the material's spread out, I use the tile trowel. I rake back over the tile adhesive. This creates ridges, which is going to help our brick adhere to the foundation. By dragging the tile trowel on a 45-degree angle through our adhesive, it's going to leave behind a measured ridge. This is a key process in achieving the right amount of material in between the brick and the foundation. When this process is working effectively, there should be a build-up of cement on the tile trowel. We just scrape this off back into our bucket for use later. With our bedding of tile cement prepared, we now apply tile adhesive to the bottom of the brick surface. I'm using my paint scraper for this application because it's easier to manage the product. The idea here is to push the product deep into the texture of the brick, so the paving brick ends up with a really tight bond. I then put the paving brick in place and squeeze it into our product. It should feel a little slippery and wobbly. That way we know we've got a really good contact with our cement. I then continue to lay out all the paving bricks for this section. Keeping everything really clean is important as we work, which is why I always keep a sponge nearby so I can clean up any spills or wipe off any dirt I see on a brick before I stick it down. We know they'll fit properly because this was part of our dry layout, setting boundaries of where certain bricks will fit together. The last paving brick in this row is a good example of what it's like when you place a brick down and it doesn't feel like it has a really good sticky contact. So I lift it back out, add some more product, and then put it back in place. With all the bricks in place for this section, I just go back over them lightly with my rubber hammer to make sure I've got a really good adhesion. Then I check the whole row with my level. With this section of brick complete, we move our staging area up the path and continue our process.
your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind. I offer peace and understanding for the things that you seek to find. Nobody knows how to stem the river's flow.
With the completion of the brick edging on this pathway, we're now ready for the final stage of this project, which is adding the golden path gravel. We're going to need a significant amount of gravel to finish off this terrace project, so I've ordered in 3 meters of material. It's a 50-50 mix of packing sand and a product called golden path. By mixing these 2 types of gravel together, you get a really solid product once it gets compacted into the ground. The packing sand helps everything bind together, and the golden path adds the attractive golden pebble look.
Today's episode, we're going to cover all this with our golden path special gravel, decorative gravel, about 50 mil, about this thick. Because now that our primary engineering and building is complete, we've finished the garden bed and all the walls are done. This is the best part, is putting this top coat on. It'll start to look like a finished backyard, at least in this section anyway.
Even adding our gravel that seems simple requires a bit of a strategy. The first part of our plan was having an adequate space to dump this material that was easy for the truck to dump and is also easy for me to transport into this backyard. I need to mix these 2 different gravel products together. So as we move the material into the backyard, it's a good opportunity to start this mixing process. I'm alternating shovel loads of the different material into the wheelbarrow as a way of getting this mix started, and then we'll be able to finish it off in the backyard with our rake. I'm limiting the amount I load into the wheelbarrow due to the fact that when we dump it out, it's quite heavy and I don't want to injure myself. Overloading your wheelbarrow with too much material is a great way to strain muscles and make it more painful than it needs to be. We have a lot of gravel to move into this yard, so I'd rather take smaller loads. This is more of a marathon than a sprint. I'm dumping the gravel in the corner of the retaining wall so we can work back from there and not get in our own way. I now spread this gravel mix out about 50 mil thick over the entire finished surface of our project. We rake it back and forth to help mix the 2 different gravel types together and create an even surface.
Nobody knows how stem the river's flow. Nobody feels the pain. Nobody knows how stem the river's flow. Are you strong enough to break these chains? Are you strong enough to break these chains?
I'm careful to not let my rake scrape the black gravel that we're laying the decorative gravel on top of. I'm using the pointy side of the rake to mix the 2 gravels together and the smooth side of the rake to flatten them out. I'm raking this gravel to our approximate 50 mil depth height in the corners along the edges first, because I can use the blocks in the wall and our paving bricks we lay as an indicator to how deep the gravel should be. This concrete septic tank lid is also a good indicator, because this is going to end up flush with the top of our gravel. Once I've got the corners and edges to the right height, it's easy to fill the middle in and smooth it out to the right 50 mil depth. Here you can see me using the paving bricks we just finished laying as an indicator to get the gravel to the right depth. I randomly stomp along the gravel to compact it as we're putting it in.
I stem the river's flow. Nobody feels the pain.
With the patio area completely filled with gravel and flattened out, it's time to move on to the ramp that wraps around the outside of our retaining wall. This is the last video episode for this particular project. It was my pleasure to create these videos in the hope it might assist you in carrying out similar projects in your own backyards. I've spent many months creating a comprehensive video guide on how to carry out all the procedures for a project like this, ranging from our excavation and foundations to the hollow block and natural stone walls. The project is broken up into 29 separate videos. They're all labelled in reference to the many parts of a project like this. I've also included them all in a YouTube playlist, so you can navigate through them as needed. There'll be many more video series following shortly, full of construction techniques and ideas for your backyard, including a bamboo screen, some terracotta paving, and a natural stone garden stairway. If you have any questions regarding the construction or engineering of any of these projects, don't hesitate to ask in the comment field of these videos. I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching my videos.
Nobody knows how stem the river's flow. Nobody feels the pain. Nobody knows how stem the river's flow. Are you strong enough to break these chains? Are you strong enough to break these chains? Close the door and leave the light off. The morning light should be coming soon.
Thanks for joining me this week on my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.